Some have queried whether the mother of the first Negro man might have not been frightened by some hideous black monster of the antediluvian woods. It's pre-flood, right? As in the first ages of the world, there were many terrible beasts of the wilderness roaming about, whose races are now extinct. So it's not talking about animals there. Maybe it is about those animal species, but here it's saying about whose races are now extinct. It could be like when you look at the Origin of Species book, and some like Ray Comfort, the Christian in America, says, "Oh, that shows that Charles Darwin is racist." But no, he's talking about species of flowers, plants, vegetation, etc. He's not being a racist and saying, superior Caucasians to these lower, darker, mixed blood relations, races, right? He's not saying that. They've taken it out of context. There is one creature which existed then and is not yet extinct, whose appearance in its native haunts is very frightful to behold, and this is the black orang-outan. So he's trying to say that these African people were probably apes or something, right? Of which animal there are individuals known to have attained the enormous height. Is he trying to relate that orangutan to these darker races? Or maybe they got a fright from this particular very tall orangutan, black in colour, of 7 feet. Wouldn't that be a yeti? Covered entirely with shiny black hair. The strange effect of fright on the offspring of mothers is a well-known phenomenon in the physiological history of man. Thus, as some have supposed, the Negro race was produced forming an entire new class of human beings, and distinguished from the nature, colour and character of the parents by a fright of the mother. So, what's he saying? The mother got a fright from this black orangutan? Not necessarily a black person. It's not referring to a black person as an orangutan, but this orangutan that was 7 feet tall in that antediluvian period snuck up behind her and gave her a fright. And she said, "Oh no, I'll be scared by this monster," and looked like this. Others have seemed to believe that in the very first ages of the planet, and long before the creation of Adam, there existed a race of animals having a resemblance to man. Okay, is it saying apes? Giant apes? As has the orangutan, but of gigantic stature, yeah, it is, as well as power, dwelling in communion with other beasts and monsters of that time. Ooh. From this family of animals, it has been supposed that the Negro race was derived. Oh my gosh. So they're saying that the African race were orangutans. This guy is on some wacky trip. And it was brought forward by the continual mutations of nature. So this is probably someone with evolution ideas, beliefs, passing from one change to another in pursuit of maturity with all things else, arriving at last to the highest point as exhibited in the presence of the black or Negro nations. It has also been believed that at a very early period of time, some community of men have been so situated in relation to climate, food and other circumstances as to have been changed from the original stamp of complexion and character to that of perfect blacks, thus originating the Negro family of man. So what's he trying to say there? That these original Caucasian white people for some reason turned black? Which originated in the original Negro family of man. Some have imagined that the origin of the race was a disease of the skin, oh my gosh, which being an incurable nature, formed at length a radical character, and thus produced this people. Many have believed that there was at first as many fathers and mothers created as there are now different races of men, from whom have descended the red, the white, and the black, the brown, and the yellow tribes of the human race, discarding the account given in the scriptures of there having been but one pair of human beings created. Okay, well, looking at the Tav Asheret, the original ancient very old Tav Asheret, Berita or Berita, Bereshit in Hebrew, it actually talks of God creating pre-Adamic being in His image and His likeness, not from the ground, not molded from the ground as the human being, the more spiritual being, Adam, was created. This is Genesis 1:26 or 27 in the Berita, translated from the original Tav Asheret or Aramaic, hand copied by scribes and monks in Ur-Hai, now Odessa, modern Turkey, around 800 BCE. He got hold of those original manuscripts from the original Apostolic Church of the East, or the restored Church of the East, from a high priest, and he translated those into the nearest English equivalent using a certain method. Because remember, that's a long dead, no longer written, no longer spoken, or very rarely spoken language. So he had to take the root words of the modern, or the modern vernacular, possibly the Syriac, to do that and translate it into the nearest English equivalent. Right? So in a sense, yeah, there were beings before Adam and Eve. Archaeologists, etc., has proven that there was cave dwellers, hunters, gatherers, by the remains, the bones, etc., found in certain places like Neander, Germany, the different caves and so forth. There were many fakes done, like people try to put a monkey head on a human skeleton, all this sort of stuff, and made out, oh yeah, this is a prehistoric man, and this proves the evolution that man came from a monkey, all this sort of stuff, and yeah, they all got busted. As it did with these dinosaurs in the museums, try to add wings to them, all this sort of stuff. Didn't have these parts. They say, oh, I've got a complete dinosaur here you are, right? No, this dinosaur's got wings and it's got chicken feet. What's going on? Many have believed that there was at first as many fathers and mothers created as there are now different races of men, from which have descended the red, the white, and black, the brown, and the yellow tribes of the human race, discarding the account given in the scriptures of there having been but one pair of human beings created. Yeah, that's in your modern, that'll be in your latter ones, 1611 afterwards, right? You're probably reading a King James version or something like that, getting it from there. Others have imagined that the mark set upon Cain by the divine power for the crime of homicide or murdering his brother Abel was that of jet, which not only changed the colour of his body but extended to the blood and the whole of his physical being, thus originating the Negro race, a remnant of which they supposed by means of some craft or rather outrode the flood, anchoring on some lofty mountains, subsisting on the floating carcasses of the drowned animals until the earth was dried again. Where does this guy get his facts from? So the whole world is totally flooded, everything on it dies, but a Negro or a black person or whatever is rowing around on dead people or dead animals. He survives on top of the water for how many days? 40 days and 40 nights. This guy has one hell of an imagination. Well, he's saying that other people are saying this sort of stuff, so it may not be his actual belief. Yeah, it might not be coming from his mouth. Thus many have mused on the subject of the origin of the Negro race, but we reject all these schemes as the baseless hallucinations of visionaries. Visionaries. Even the mooted and equally absurd problem that climate or any other contingency became the origin of that people. Well, we just stated earlier that these people, like Noah's descendants, migrated to somewhere else and they went to a hot geographical location, say like Africa or down the Nile or somewhere, and the sun's beating down on them all day, every day, and your skin's got to handle that heat, so it evolves over time. It adapts so they don't get the skin disease or whatever, or get so hot that they just burn up or something like that. All that sort of stuff. Thus many have mused on the subject of the origin of the Negro race, but we reject all these schemes as the baseless hallucinations of visionaries, even the mooted and equally absurd problem that climate or any other contingency became the origin of that people, and affirm that a cause of an entire race, an entire different description from all these gave birth to the race, an account of which we shall give in this work. So any scientific finding today he would reject. A skin specialist, etc., that would say, here's the evidence that proves itself evident, here's the established facts, that the skin would have had to evolve over a certain period of time. They would say, no, it's rubbish. As to the mental character of the black nations considered collectively, we have found them in all ages since the appearance on the earth of but small accounts when compared with the other races of men, the red and white. In publishing their opinions as presented in this work, they have been moved thereto by the operation of conflicting principles as held by abolitionists and anti-abolitionists throughout the entire United States, believing that light was necessary in order to learn the truth respecting the people in question, namely the Negro race. We are also anxious to ascertain, these authors of this book, right, this Josiah Priest, etc., we're also anxious to ascertain the cause of this class of mankind being enslaved in the low and degraded sense of the word. As to the history of the black portion of the human race, it has occupied the pens of more writers than one, on which account we feel that we are not alone in this attempt. Like-minded, likewise, right? And you always find them sympathetic to your claims, your cause. Also that we have advanced some new and not uninteresting opinions with respect to the time and the occasion of the production of the first Negro man. Together with an account of the origin of this people, we have not forgotten to inquire something respecting the native mental abilities of the race and whether created equal in that and other particulars with other men. We have also had something to say about exalting them in this country to political and social equality with the other citizens of the United States, and whether were the whites and blacks to become amalgamated, it would be a desirable object with many other matters of interest. We have found the history of this race somewhat of a difficult character to describe, as it is far more hidden and obscure than the history of either the red or white race. Yet we believe that some progress in this respect is made in the work. Thus, with but few prefatory remarks, we submit our opinions, believing that which we have advanced to be indubitable, however repugnant to the conception of many who fancy they see in the Negro's mind the germs of a prodigious mental power, notwithstanding all the evidence to the contrary which has witnessed against him for thousands of years, showing that that a pool of darkness and obscurity not occasioned by the acts of the influence of the other races has rested on the whole being of this people, induced by a higher power than that of man. As was the deep when nature first was made, and earth's foundation in the waters laid, when darkness reigned the realm of ancient night, when God set forth his word and there was light, so is the race of Ham a darkling sea, which now invites the truth that light may be, over which if we have sent a single ray, then we have gained our aim and look for the day. The author, that was that, Josiah Priest. Index, first section, second section, and someone's written a comment here, but it's covered by that page fold. Third edition, third section. And it continues. People have written notes here. It's probably talk about Moses' wife being an Ethiopian. proofs of her being a negress and of the race of Ham. Statement of the prophet Jeremiah that Ethiopians were black. If the three sons of Noah were all of the same complexion, then follows certain results fatal to the veracity of the scriptures. Hercules was Nimrod, the grandson of Noah, and the origin of all the fabled Herculeses of the early nations. Some curious tradition of African authority respecting their own origin, with many other curious matters. And wife of Ham and others. Wife of Ham and the wives of the other sons of Noah, who they were, respecting straight-haired black men. The cause Ham, their father, having been woolly-headed. Egyptian mummies, one man only between Noah and Adam, etc., etc. Sixth section, proof from the scriptures that the curse of Noah upon the race of Ham as a judicial act is endorsed by the law of Moses. Comparative view of all the orders of servants among the Jews as a hired Hebrew servant, the bought Hebrew servant, and the voluntary Hebrew servant, and a Negro or Canaanite slave. Okay, so these are non-Jews. Okay, so there's a difference there. You have a Hebrew servant, a bought Hebrew servant, or the voluntary Hebrew servant, because they like that person. They decide, oh yeah, I'll work for him, I'll be his cook or whatever. Okay, and there's a difference there between them, the servant, and the Negro or Canaanite slave. Remarks on the subject of the strangers of whom the Jews might take usury or payment, and of whom might not take usury, might not take payment, and so forth. And then down the bottom here, enslaving, what's this? Proofs that the Hebrews bought and sold Negro slaves under the sanction of the law, or is that the Torah, the book of instruction, even going to Africa for that purpose. Enslaving of the persons of the Amalekites under the eye of Moses. Slaves of the patriarchs bought with money. A curious query of abolitionists answered with many other matters. He's making all these claims in these different sections of his book. Arguments and positions of abolitionists, favouring a belief that the scriptures recognise the Negro man as being equal with the other races. All men are created equal. In point of blood, and otherwise refuted. Mark of Cain, what it was, no black man or Negroes before the flood except one. Difference between the, and that's the one that floated on the dead corpses or carcasses of the animals that died because of the flood, and floated around for 40 days, according to this author and what he's heard.